getting into some conflict, and I want to talk a little bit about like your relationship with the UFC and Dana, and kind of I know like from a vague like 30,000 feet view like what the situation is, but can you kind of talk to us a little bit about that, how everything went down, and what that's like now?
Man, look at Bo hitting me with the hard hitting questions. That's good. I like that. I respect it. Well, do we have 4 hours? So, in short, a lot of people ask me, what is your relationship like with Dana White? And my answer is, it is non-existent. And I don't think that's a good thing or a bad thing. I just would say, like, I don't have a relationship with him because we don't talk, we don't text, I don't see him, things of that nature. And that is totally okay. I don't, of course, would I like to have a relationship with everyone in the sport? Absolutely. Would I like to have a good relationship? Yes. And when you're talking about the most powerful person, of course, but life doesn't work that way, and things don't happen that way. And so, as long as I could do my job, as long as I can do the shows and talk to the fighters and interview them and entertain the people and give people something to listen to or watch, I'm very, very happy. And that's the current situation. And so that's great. Now, that's not necessarily the answer that I know you want. So I'll go a little bit deeper and say between 2009 to 2016, the relationship was phenomenal. It was unbelievable. I mean, funny enough, when the Bills were playing the Chiefs 2 weeks ago, I was looking through like old, Bills conversations and whatnot. And it was amazing how many Dana White texts popped up, because he's a huge Patriots fan, and he would always give me crap about the Bills, 6, 7, 8 years ago, because they were always beating our ass. And, he would send me videos of him and his kids in his house, like rooting the Patriots on and making fun of the Bills. Like, we had that kind of a relationship. And 2016, it started to fizzle out because it wasn't actually because of Dana White. It was more because of Lorenzo Fertitta, because I was working for Fox while doing my show, the MMA Hour, and Fox was a broadcast partner of the UFC, and Lorenzo didn't like that when I would go on the MMA Hour, I would talk about things like, Bellator or revenue sharing or fighter contracts, all things that I consider to be, just a part of sports talk radio that you hear in the NFL and NBA, but they were very much like, you're either with us or against us. And one time Rory McDonald was on my show, and Rory McDonald didn't like the contract that they had offered him, an extension. And he said that he was going to fight out his contract and fight Wonder Boy in June of that year. It was March of 2016. And the next morning I got a call from my boss at Fox saying, we have to let you go. And I asked why. And they said the UFC was upset, and they don't want you on Fox anymore. And that was devastating. And so when that happened, I was very hurt. I'd never done anything bad or illegal or unethical or got a story wrong. And I didn't feel like it was fair, if I'm being honest. And so I went on a rampage from March to June of that year. I tried to break every single story under the sun. Like, I was a man possessed. And I did a pretty good job of it. And in that process, I was doing such a good job that the UFC was convinced that I had a mole in the company that was feeding me information. Swear to God, I had no mole. I just had contacts. I had managers, I had fighters, I had coaches that were very kind to me and understood that I was just trying to do journalism. That's it. I wasn't malicious. I wasn't trying to unearth dirty secrets about them. I was just doing sports journalism. That's it. And, it all came to a head when I reported that Brock Lesnar was coming back. They were very unhappy about this. They thought that I ruined a surprise, that I got the information from some weird way. It was not that. It was a couple of people told me. I looked into it, and I did sports journalism, no different than Woj or Schefter or Shams or anyone like that. And so that's when they banned me in 2016, UFC 199. But here's the problem. There's been a massive piece of revisionist history that has occurred. A lot of these new fans think that I've been banned since UFC 199. Like, they hit me with this thinking that it's the case. They're too stupid to realize that the ban lasted 48 hours. I was back the next event. I went to UFC 200, and I was there at 201 and 202 and 203 and 204 and 205. I was at every single event up until UFC 248, I think it was, or 247. The last UFC event that I went to was Izzy versus Romero, which I'm pretty sure is 247, and that was March of 2020. And then the pandemic hit, and then I was working at ESPN, and then ESPN said no more traveling. So my contract with ESPN expired in June of 2021. And just as things were opening up again, because you'll recall, like Jacksonville, April 21 was the first show with fans, and then there was a pay-per-view in May, and then June was the last one. By the last one, I was already gone. And so we just agreed, like, it's probably best just stay home for this one, and, God bless. And this is the truth. When I left, I said to myself, I don't want to go back because, without getting too deep and getting uncomfortable, like I felt very, very uncomfortable towards the end. They made my life very difficult. I was there. I was credentialed. There were no problems. But it was just, I was feeling increasingly uncomfortable at the events. And so when I left, I said, I'm going to focus on building my show, my relationships, the interviews. And I don't want to leave my family to feel uncomfortable. And so that's that. And so I've not applied for credentials since March of 2020. Obviously, incredible memories. Obviously, I sometimes miss being in that environment and buzz, but I feel like I provide something different to the audience. And I feel like my relationships and connections are just as strong. And so, yeah, they leave me alone and I leave them alone. I don't hit them up. I don't bother them. They don't do the same for me. And I think that's healthy and fine. And I hope that they think that I cover the sport fairly and accurately, and that I try to treat the sport, with respect and professionalism. And that's just where it is. Would one day, I say this a million times, and I'm making a very long story short, so I'm sorry for going long. Despite all the differences, and there's much more that happened that I don't need to get into here. If Dana White called me up now and said, come to Vegas and let's bury the hatchet, I think I would have many reasons to say, F you. No, I'm not interested, but I would say yes. I would be on a plane, and I would want nothing in return. I'm not looking to do that or interested in that to get interviews or scoops or access. I just believe you live life once, and I don't want any hate in my heart. I don't want any animosity. I think life is too short for that, and so I try to live that way. And I don't think that's happening anytime soon, and I'm at peace with that. But it is important for me to say that, like, in the early portions of my career, no one was better, no one was kinder to me than him, and I don't think I betrayed that. I think people around him convinced him that I betrayed that, and that's just the way life goes sometimes.
Two follow-ups. One, if you could go back to that time period, like you were kind of saying around 2016, would you do anything differently? Would you change how you went at that situation? And two, could you ever see yourself, applying for a credential and going to a UFC event again in the future at some point?
Those are amazing questions. I appreciate them. The answer to the first one is absolutely not. I did nothing wrong. I was doing journalism the right way, and again, I wasn't. If you really break down what I was doing, I was the NBA trade deadline is going on right now. It's about to end, and I love sports news. I love sports radio, sports podcasts, and I'm on Twitter refreshing, being like, oh, who's going where, right? That's what I was doing. It was transactional news. It was this guy's fighting this guy, nothing more. I wasn't digging into their finances or personal lives. Like, that's malicious stuff to a degree. I wasn't doing any of that. I was just, it was all, this guy's fighting this guy. This guy has agreed to fight this. Like, that's it. Fodder, fun stuff, in my opinion. But obviously I was determined because I wasn't happy with what happened with the Fox deal. So if I did anything that was like unethical or unprofessional, then I would say, like, yeah, man, I messed up. But I didn't. It's honest to God, on my kids' lives, I did everything the right way. And proud to say, like, nothing was inaccurate. Like, I didn't put out fake news, false news, or anything like that. And as far as the second question is concerned, that one is a tricky one for me, because, like, I don't want to sit here and be like, I'm a victim or anything like that. I'm not. I've been able to create a great life for myself and cover a sport that I love, and I'm very happy with how everything is. And so if I say like, you know, I would say that a conversation would have to happen and things would have to be discussed for that to happen. Now, I can assure you of this. If Dana White is listening to this right now, he's probably laughing and being like, F you, I don't care. But for me, if you're asking me, would I go into the website right now and apply for a credential? Certain things would have to be discussed and certain things would have to be put on the table as far as like the past for me to say, I feel comfortable being in your arena. And by the way, Bo, like maybe I'm not welcome anymore. I don't know. I have not applied. So maybe it's like one of those things where like, you know, your girlfriend wants to dump you. You're just not going to come home because then she can't dump you. I don't know. Maybe it's one of those things. I don't know. But like the one thing that does get under my skin a little bit is when I hear fans being like, oh, you're banned from events. Like, says who? Did you like, I have no documentation that says that. I have not applied. And I decided to do that long before like people were even talking about this. It was just my decision because of how I wanted to cover the sport and how I wanted to just kind of feel. So I'm not a never type of guy. I never say never, truly. I'm not an absolute person like that, but there's nothing. And I'll be honest, like there's times where you sit at home and you're watching and you're like, there's a bit of FOMO for sure. Like there's an energy there and I live off of that, but there's nothing in me that's being like, you know what, today I'm going to do this. And let's give it the old college try.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense. It's like, why, if you don't feel comfortable and welcome somewhere, like why put yourself in that situation? But I will say personally for me, I would love to get some post-fight questions from you in the at the press conference. I think it would be fun. So
I appreciate that, man.
If things change, then that'd be great. If you guys like that clip, check out the whole podcast here and make sure to hit that subscribe button.